On November 10, 1975, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, a titan of the Great Lakes, was swallowed by the icy depths of Lake Superior. All 29 souls aboard vanished without a trace, no distress call, no survivors. The ship's final words, radioed by Captain Ernest McSorley, were a chilling epitaph. "We are holding our own." Then silence. Lake Superior, they say, never gives up her dead. Its freezing waters lock bodies in an eternal embrace. Some say the ship and her crew never left, their restless spirits bound to the lake, sailing through fog and storm, forever seeking safe harbor. The Fitzgerald was no ordinary ship. Launched in 1958, it was the largest freighter on the Great Lakes, but its birth was marked by omens. At its christening, the champagne bottle refused to break, taking 3 agonizing swings to shatter, a sailor's curse. As the ship slid into the water, it lurched sideways, smashing into a pier. A spectator clutched his chest and dropped dead of a heart attack. For 17 years it defied those whispers, hauling millions of tons of ore across Lake Superior. Captain McSorley, a grizzled veteran of 44 years, knew every ripple of the lake. His crew, 29 men, trusted him implicitly. On November 9, 1975, they set out from Superior, Wisconsin, with 26,000 tons of taconite pellets bound for Detroit. By November 10th, the storm had turned traitor. The Witch of November unleashed her full wrath, gale-force winds, blinding snow. The Anderson reported 3 rogue waves, the Three Sisters, where massive waves strike in deadly succession, each bigger than the last. At 3:30 p.m., McSorley radioed, "We are holding our own." By 7:10 p.m., the Anderson's radar showed the Fitzgerald ahead. Then, in an instant, it was gone. No signal, no debris, no lifeboats, just an empty lake roaring with rage. In the wake of the Edmund Fitzgerald's loss, the official inquiries closed, the insurance claims were settled, and the world tried to move on. But the lake, it seems, was not finished with the ship. The tragedy was so profound, so sudden, that it seemed to tear a hole in the fabric of reality, leaving behind an echo, a persistent memory that refused to fade. Then came the stories. They started as whispers in waterfront taverns, quiet confessions shared between seasoned sailors over late-night coffee. They spoke of a shadow on the water, a phantom vessel that rode the waves on the foggiest of nights, a ship that appeared where no ship should be, only to vanish as quickly as it came. These weren't just fanciful tales, they were earnest, chilling accounts from credible mariners who knew Lake Superior's every mood and contour. They described a feeling that preceded the sighting, a sudden, unnatural drop in temperature, a silence that fell over the water, and a sense of being watched by something ancient and sorrowful. The most famous and well-documented of these encounters occurred a decade after the sinking. In 1985, the captain and crew of a commercial vessel were navigating the treacherous waters near Whitefish Point, the very area the Fitzgerald was trying to reach. The fog was a thick, disorienting blanket, reducing visibility to near zero. Suddenly, the lookout called out. There, off the port bow, was the unmistakable silhouette of a massive ore carrier. It was the Edmund Fitzgerald. There was no sound of an engine, no blast from a horn, just a colossal shape gliding silently through the mist. Its deck lights were faint, like distant dying stars. The crew watched, a mix of awe and terror freezing them in place, as the phantom ship sailed directly toward them. It grew larger and larger, filling their view, before it seemed to lose its form, dissolving into the swirling vapor as if it were made of smoke itself. A frantic check of their equipment confirmed the impossible. Their state-of-the-art radar, which should have picked up a vessel of that size from miles away, showed nothing but empty water. There was no contact, no signal, no trace. They radioed the Coast Guard, their voices trembling, reporting a ghost ship. The official response was silence. But among the maritime community, the story spread like wildfire, validating the whispers that had haunted the lake for years. The Fitzgerald, it was said, was still trying to complete its final journey. Over time, Whitefish Point, the lonely sentinel at the entrance to Whitefish Bay, became a nexus for the paranormal. Known for centuries as the graveyard of the Great Lakes, this stretch of coastline has witnessed countless tragedies. It is here that the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum stands as a solemn keeper of memory. And at the heart of its collection, the emotional and spiritual centerpiece, is the Fitzgerald's 200-pound bronze bell. Recovered in 1995 from the ship's final resting place 530 feet below, the bell was brought to the surface in a ceremony of profound respect, a tangible link to the 29 men who were lost. But the bell may have brought something else with it. Visitors and museum staff alike report strange phenomena in its presence. It's more than just historical reverence, it's a palpable energy. Many describe a creeping dread that settles in as they approach the exhibit, a physical weight in the air that presses on the chest, mimicking the crushing pressure of the deep. Others speak of sudden cold spots, or the faint disembodied sound of men's voices, muffled as if heard through water. Some sensitives claim to feel the raw emotions of the crew's final moments: confusion, fear, and a desperate unending sorrow that clings to the bronze like a shroud. The most chilling account comes from a former night watchman. Alone in the silent, cavernous museum after hours, he was making his rounds when he saw something that made his blood run cold. There, standing by the bell's glass case, was the figure of a man. He was dressed in a faded orange life jacket, the kind worn by the Fitzgerald's crew. The watchman froze, hidden in the shadows, and watched as the spectral sailor simply stood there staring silently at the bell, his form indistinct and wavering. He didn't seem menacing, but lost, forever anchored to this last remnant of his ship. After a long moment, the figure slowly turned, looked out toward the lake, and simply faded into the darkness, leaving the watchman alone with the pounding of his own heart. Is it the ship itself, or the spirits of its crew that haunt the waters and shores of Lake Superior? Perhaps they are one and the same, forever bound together, sailing the cold, dark waters of memory, their legend etched into the very soul of the Great Lakes. The 1994 dive captured footage of the shattered ship. Amid the debris they found a body, perfectly preserved, still wearing an orange life jacket. The divers felt watched the entire time, as if unseen eyes tracked their every move. Since then, reports of strange lights near Whitefish Point have spiked, especially in November, when the witch returns. Locals speak of the lake itself as a living entity, jealous and vengeful. Native Ojibwe legends tell of Mishipeshu, a horned panther who stirs storms. On stormy November nights, fishermen report hearing cries on the wind, faint and desperate, or seeing ripples as if an invisible ship cuts through. The legend of the Edmund Fitzgerald didn't end when its hull settled on the lake bed. For some, it's a story that is still unfolding, an echo that refuses to fade. The cold, deep waters of Lake Superior hold their secrets tightly, but sometimes they offer glimpses into the past that defy rational explanation. In 2023, a seasoned charter boat captain was navigating the familiar waters of Whitefish Bay, the very sanctuary the Fitzgerald was fighting to reach. His eyes were fixed on the high-resolution display of his modern sonar unit, a tool designed to reveal the hidden topography of the lake floor. Suddenly, the system pinged, alerting him to a massive object directly beneath his boat. A chillingly familiar shape materialized on the screen, a colossal shadow 729 feet long, with the unmistakable profile of a Great Lakes freighter. He knew the dimensions by heart, every mariner on the lake does. It was the Fitzgerald. Heart pounding, he scrambled from his console to the deck, scanning the turbulent surface in every direction. There was nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, not even a ripple out of place. He returned to the helm, his mind racing, but the phantom echo on his screen was gone, vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Was it a technological glitch, or a spectral signature from the lake's most famous ghost? This was not an isolated incident. The guardians of the coast, the lighthouse keepers of Whitefish Point, have their own tales, passed down through generations. These sentinels have stood watch over this treacherous stretch of water, a place sailors call the graveyard of the Great Lakes. One veteran keeper recounts a particularly violent November gale, a storm with the same ferocity as the one that claimed the Fitzgerald. Through the lashing rain and howling wind he saw it, a ship's outline, vast and dark against the churning gray water, far too close to the perilous shoals. Its deck lights weren't steady, they flickered erratically, pulsing with a strange, weak energy, as if struggling to stay lit against the storm's fury. He watched, mesmerized and horrified, as the lights blinked one last time before winking out, one by one, into the abyss. The ship was simply gone, swallowed by the storm, leaving the keeper to wonder if he had witnessed a contemporary vessel in peril, or a ghostly reenactment of a tragedy from decades past. The haunting presence isn't confined to the water. The shoreline, the very land the crew fought so desperately to reach, seems to hold their memory. A lone hiker, seeking solitude at dawn along the desolate, windswept stretch of Whitefish Point, witnessed something that defied explanation. Emerging from the thick morning mist that rolled in off the lake, he saw a line of men. They weren't walking with purpose but rather trudging, their forms clad in the distinctive bright orange of 1970 S-era life jackets. They moved in eerie silence, a spectral procession against the gray dawn, their faces indistinct and sorrowful. They seemed oblivious to his presence, their gaze fixed on some distant, unattainable point. The hiker stood frozen, a witness to what felt like a sacred, sorrowful march. As the first rays of the sun finally pierced the fog, the figures didn't walk away or disappear into the woods. They simply dissolved, their forms becoming one with the mist as the light touched them, leaving only the sound of the waves on the empty beach. Nowhere is the weight of this loss felt more profoundly than at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum, the final custodian of the Fitzgeralds' memory. Each year, on the solemn anniversary of November 10th, a powerful ritual of remembrance takes place. The centerpiece is the ship's original 200-pound bronze bell, recovered from the depths in 1995. As family members of the lost crew and hundreds of visitors gather in hushed reverence, the bell is rung 30 times. The first 29 heavy tolls are for the men of the Edmund Fitzgerald. As each name is read aloud, a roll call of the departed, the bell answers, its mournful tone echoing across the silent grounds. The final, 30th toll, resonates with a deeper purpose, a tribute to the more than 30,000 souls lost on all the Great Lakes, a collective mourning for all of the inland sea's victims. It is a moment that connects one ship's tragedy to a much larger story of maritime loss. But many who attend this ceremony, or who simply walk the museum's halls, report more than just a feeling of historical weight. They describe an unnatural, penetrating chill that has nothing to do with the November air. A persistent, unnerving sense of being watched by unseen eyes. Staff and visitors alike have shared stories that blur the line between grief and the supernatural. One woman, standing quietly before the bell, felt a distinct, firm hand brush her shoulder. She turned instantly, expecting to see a friend or a family member, but she was completely alone in the alcove. Others speak of faint, disembodied voices echoing in empty corridors, the sound of heavy work boots on floors where no one is walking, or the unsettling feeling of a presence passing by in the Shipwreck Coast Hall of Fame. Are these mere tricks of the mind, the product of a powerful story imprinted on a somber location? Or are they genuine echoes of a tragedy too profound to fade? Perhaps the 29 men of the Edmund Fitzgerald, denied their final harbor, remain tethered to the waters and the shore that mark their final resting place, their legend a timeless reminder of the lake's unforgiving power. The Fitzgerald's crew, men like the young deckhand Thomas Benson, just 23, or the seasoned wheelsman Fred Beecher, 56, are more than names etched on a memorial. They were the lifeblood of the mighty Fitz, a fraternity of 29 souls bound by the rhythms of the Great Lakes. At the helm was Captain Ernest McSorley, a 63-year-old veteran with over 4 decades of experience, known for his skill and quiet professionalism. He and his crew were masters of their craft, entrusted with a 729-foot behemoth, the pride of the American fleet. They were fathers with children waiting at home, husbands with wives tracking the storm reports, sons with plans for the winter layup just weeks away. These are the faces in the fog, the voices lost to the roar of the storm. Their collective experience was immense, yet on that single ferocious night, it was tragically insufficient. The lake, in its fury, made no exceptions. Each man represents a universe of stories, a life of hopes and routines, all extinguished in the frigid, violent chaos of the waves. They weren't just hauling taconite ore, they were upholding a long and proud tradition of Great Lakes mariners, men who faced down the elements as a matter of course. Today, the wreck remains untouched, a silent grave 530 feet down in the crushing darkness. It is a tomb, consecrated by immense pressure and a cold that preserves the scene in a state of chilling perpetuity. After early expeditions, including a historic dive by Jean-Michel Cousteau's team, brought back haunting images of the vessel's two halves buried in the mud, a profound debate began. The families of the crew, horrified by the thought of their loved ones becoming a deep-sea spectacle, petitioned for the site to be protected from further intrusion. In a landmark decision, the Canadian government agreed, designating the wreck a formal archaeological site and an official grave site. Now, no submersible can legally disturb this final resting place. It is a place of solemnity, but not of peace. The lake is never truly peaceful. It is a dynamic, powerful entity, and the Fitzgerald rests within its heart, subject to its unseen currents and its profound, eternal silence. The ship's bronze bell, recovered in 1995 in a solemn mission to provide a tangible memorial, is the only artifact ever brought to the surface. It now stands as a sentinel at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum, a resonant voice for the silent crew below. Lake Superior stretches out like a mirror to the stars, hiding its dead in plain sight. This inland ocean, so vast it generates its own weather systems, has a name for its autumn fury, the Witch of November. These are not mere storms, they are ferocious cyclonic systems, born from the violent collision of frigid Arctic air and the lake's lingering warmth. They spawn hurricane-force winds and rogue waves that can tower over 30 feet, waves that sailors describe as three sisters, a trio of massive swells that can overwhelm even the largest vessel. The Witch has claimed thousands of ships over the centuries, earning this region the grim moniker, Graveyard of the Great Lakes. The Fitzgerald is simply its largest and most famous victim. The lake's scale is deceptive. On a calm summer day, it can seem placid, a vast expanse of blue, but its depths hold a chilling power, and its memory is long. It hides its dead not just in the dark, but in a cold so profound it arrests time itself. The Fitzgerald didn't just sink, it was consumed, swallowed whole by a force of nature that has shaped this continent for millennia, a force that demands respect and too often sacrifice. The tragedy might have faded into the annals of maritime history, another statistic in the lake's grim ledger. But in 1976, Canadian folk singer Gordon Lightfoot, moved by a news report, penned a ballad that would transform the wreck into an enduring legend. The wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald became an international anthem of loss, its haunting melody and narrative lyrics etching the names of the ship, the lake, and the storm into the collective consciousness. The song ensured the 29 men would never be forgotten, giving a powerful, poetic voice to a tragedy that resonated far beyond the shores of the Great Lakes. This cultural touchstone is now inseparable from the event itself. It is the hymn of the annual memorial service at Whitefish Point. Every November 10th, as the gales begin to blow, families, mariners, and historians gather. Here, the ship's recovered bell is rung 29 times, once for each man. A final 30th toll honors the more than 30,000 other souls lost to the Great Lakes. It is a powerful ritual of remembrance, a promise that as long as the bell rings, their story will be told. Next time you stand on its shores, listen closely. For those who sail these waters, the Fitzgerald is more than a memory, it's a presence. Maritime lore is filled with tales of ghost ships, but the stories surrounding the Fitz carry a particular chilling weight. Sailors on the anniversary of the sinking have reported seeing a massive dark shape on their radar where no ship should be, only to have it vanish into the static moments later. Others speak of seeing unexplained lights on the horizon near the wreck site, or hearing the faint metallic groan of a ship's hull under stress, a sound carried on the wind over the waves. The ship went down without a single distress call, without a single survivor to bear witness. This absolute void has been filled by legend. The Edmund Fitzgerald is out there, somewhere in the mist, caught in an endless voyage, forever battling the storm, forever trying to reach the light of Whitefish Point. She and her crew are now part of the lake itself, bound to its depths, her ghost a permanent fixture in the mists of Lake Superior, and she is not alone.